All right, it's time for the scouting report on the newest 49er, Kyahva Tezino. And, of course, the Krug Show brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera, open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, the 49ers made a roster move yesterday. They put Nick Bosa on the reserve did not report list, and that gave them an empty roster spot on their camp roster, and they filled it with linebacker Kyahva Tezino. Kyahva is the first name spelling. Tezino, Tezino, Kyahva Tezino, former San Diego State linebacker. If you watch college football, you're well familiar with Tezino. He wore 44 for San Diego State. San Diego State's had some really good defensive teams in the last decade, and Tezino was as good as they got down there for the Aztecs. He wore number 44. He was there at San Diego State from 2015 through 2019. They really used him a lot as a blitzer. He had 8.5 sacks as a junior. And then he's played most recently in the USFL with the Pittsburgh Maulers. In fact, he had 94 tackles. He wore number 31 for Pittsburgh. He's a 26-year-old linebacker. Let's talk a little bit about Tezino. 2-time first-team All-Mountain West Conference player. He was the 2019 New Mexico Bowl defensive MVP in San Diego State's 48-11 win over Central Michigan. This guy can he's been used as a blitzer. He's a linebacker, and he's just been nothing but productive. 11th in solo tackles at San Diego State all time. So he's got the 11th most tackles in the history of that program. And really, this is an example of another example of a player whose path to the NFL was directly impacted by COVID-19. And the impact that it had on so many young players. But this is a player, Tezino's fast, and he's instinctive, and he really plays fast. And then he showed in the USFL that he's a 3-down linebacker who can drop and cover and blitz. His track record going back to high school, he went to Salesian High in Southern California, 4-star recruit, and he was a safety. He was a college football safety or a high school football safety in Los Angeles at Salesian High School, and a 4-star recruit who went to San Diego State and became a linebacker. And the story is a great one. He was working at Amazon and just sitting there going, man, I need to get another shot at the NFL. I need to get another shot chasing my dream. And he got that shot with the secondary football league, the USFL, and he made the most of it. In fact, he was so good for the Pittsburgh Maulers of the USFL. I mentioned before, 94 tackles. They went to the USFL title game, and Tezino in that game had 13 tackles. He's a 6-foot, 235-pound linebacker. He was a 3-year starter in high school, 4-star recruit, and then he goes to San Diego State, and he was a 2-time San Diego State MVP. 8th all-time in San Diego State history in assisted tackles. He had 11 double-digit tackle games when he was there at San Diego State. He plays with aggression. He plays with a ton of toughness. 2018 was his real big year. He had 127 tackles, 14 and a half of them on the other side of the line of scrimmage, 8.5 sacks. So there's a lot to like. Now, he's not a perfect player, otherwise he wouldn't be around and available on the street on July 26th. But he's got short arms, so the scouts marked him down for that. Even though he takes great angles, his pursuit speed is probably a little bit below average. This is a guy who I think is much better going forward than he is going backward. But he showed he could do it all in the USFL, but that's a lower level of competition. In college football, at times he struggled in man-to-man coverage on his drops. He got a little bit of a cup of coffee with the New England Patriots and the Carolina Panthers. He came out as an undrafted free agent in the 2020 draft. And just, another guy that was, as I said, impacted by COVID-19. He just, not enough teams saw him. His whole thing was interrupted. And now he's kind of had taken the circuitous route where he's working at Amazon, going through the USFL, and John Lynch and Adam Peters are giving him a shot here in 49er camp. So he should be a real interesting player to watch. As I said, 6 feet, 235-pound linebacker, and he runs well, but he's much better, attacking the line of scrimmage, shooting gaps. If Steve Wilks likes to blitz his backers, then he may really like this player because this is a guy who sees it. There's no hesitation. He goes and he fires into the backfield. Now, he's not nearly as good in coverage. He's not nearly as good backpedaling and trying to cover people down the field. But overall, I think this is a nice addition to the 49er linebacking core. The Niners have, probably the best linebackers in the entire league. So it's going to be very difficult for Tezino to make the roster, but there's always a chance he could make the practice squad and become a special teamer and work his way into the NFL via that route. He's more than just a camp body, in my opinion, because I think he's got some real ability. Let's take a look at the Niner linebacking core as we get ready to go down to Santa Clara for day 2 at training camp. It's Dre Greenlaw, number 57, Fred Warner, number 54. Those two linebackers are among the, 10 or 15 best in the entire sport. Warner might be the best middle backer there is. Greenlaw is not far behind. I mean, these guys are really, really good football players. Then the Niners also have Oren Burks, who's a phenomenal special teamer. They brought over last year in free agency. Burks can play from scrimmage if you need him in the base. He also could play special teams. Then you have Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who wears number 45, the former Arizona safety, who really has established himself as a phenomenal special teamer and a key contributor. Another guy that will come up and knock the snot out of you. He hits hard, he runs fast, and he's really valuable on special teams. And if that's where the Niner linebacking core ended, most teams, that would be enough. But the Niners have more than that. They also have Curtis Robinson, the former Stanford player, who's very smart, very instinctive, really good special teamer. Curtis Robinson is a very underrated special teams linebacker in my estimation. And then you got the two rookies, D. Winters from TCU, who was a 6th-round pick in this last draft. You remember Winters from the Michigan game, TCU and Michigan in the national semi. Winters was the defensive MVP of that game. He was all over the field, shooting gaps, making plays in the backfield. He's got great instincts. Now, Winters fell to the 6th round despite being incredibly productive because he lacks lower body explosiveness. He only had 30 inches on the vertical. He definitely needs to get stronger. I think Winters is going to be a real player in a year after he spends a year in an NFL weight room with NFL conditioning guys, NFL strength and conditioning coordinators, and that kind of thing, building up that leg strength and explosion. But, man, he's an instinctive linebacker who can absolutely go get it. Then there's Jalen Graham, who was taken in the 7th round out of Purdue. I even like Graham a little bit more. I mean, Graham was a player that I identified about a year ago as a guy that I thought would really fit their system. 6'1", 225, but when you look at him on the field, he can do it all. He can drop and cover. He can play the run. He can blitz. He's a very smart, instinctive player who played in a really solid defense at Purdue and was well coached. And then he showed up in the mini camps and balled out. I thought Jalen Graham was fantastic. Then you add to the mix that Scott McLuhan, who did a great piece with Matt Barrows in The Athletic, highlighted Graham as one of his favorite players that the Niners took in this last draft class, and McLuhan's got an incredible eye for talent. So watch for Jalen Graham. And don't forget number 40, Marcelino McCrary-Ball, who was, came to Indiana as a nickel, played safety exclusively there, and now is a linebacker. And, man, Marcelino was phenomenal last year in the preseason, had a nice interception and a 50-plus yard return after the interception. And, really probably could have made many teams in the NFL. Instead, because they're so loaded at linebacker, he spent the year on the practice squad. Good for the Niners. Nobody picked him off because he's a hell of a player. And now Marcelino in year 2 has put on, I would say, 8 to 10 pounds of upper body muscle. He's moving confidently out there. And, Marcelino told me last year, he's like, hey, man, I came here because Drake Greenlaw and Fred Warner and Aziz Al-Shaair, in his mind, are dogs. And he's like, I want to be a dog just like them. And I think Marcelino is going to have a terrific NFL career. So that's where the 49ers sit at linebacker. And the newest name of the bunch is one that I'm sure lots of people will probably butcher, Kyahva Tezino. Say it a few times, Kyahva Tezino, the newest 49er linebacker via San Diego State and the USFL Pittsburgh Maulers. Can't wait to see Tazino out on the practice squad this summer. All right, hope you enjoyed our video. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor. I'm off to Santa Clara for day 2 of training camp, and this time I promise I will wear sunscreen. Have a great day, everybody. Go Niners. Should be a great day. We'll do some videos from Santa Clara, a little preview camp video when we get down there. We'll bring you all the sights and sounds from camp, highlights, podium sound, camp reviews. And then tonight, join me on the Krug Show with Vish Kumaran and Jesse Naylor. The three of us get together for our Thursday night 49er Big Show coming up this evening. So, huge day for me down in Ninerland. Today's also the debut of Brock Purdy. Can't wait to see that. How does Purdy look? Our first set of eyes on Purdy throwing the football since last year's NFC Championship game. Should be an eventful day in Santa Clara. Have a great one, everybody.